Hello and welcome to what I'm going to be calling Radiating Literature, because I'm by Radiator and I'm funny. So the idea with this is that during this time of social distancing and thus social isolation, that I would read some stories and post the video of me reading them. And maybe that would make people feel less alone. We'll sort of see how it goes. So to start, I'm going to be reading something by Agatha Christie. I plan to read this whole book. We'll see how long it takes, and some of that has to do with how long we're going to be trapped here. I wanted to have a candle next to me, but my dog became way too interested in the smell of the candle, and it's real fire. So the candle is giving me atmosphere up on a table far away from my dog. I'm not sure if you just heard her now. She may be making some appearances. We'll sort of see how it goes. We're still figuring each other out. Okay, so this book is called The Murder on the Links by Agatha Christie. And for anyone worrying, I double-checked, it's in the public domain, so it's totally fine for me to read this out loud. You can also find it for free on Gutenberg.org. I can post that link. But it's called The Murder on the Links by Agatha Christie. And the dedication is to my husband, a fellow enthusiast for detective stories, and to whom I am indebted for much helpful advice and criticism. Alright, I feel like that tells us something about their relationship. Anyways, Chapter 1, A Fellow Traveler. I believe that a well-known anecdote exists to the effect that a young writer, determined to make the commencement of his story forcible and original enough to catch and rivet the attention of the most blasé of editors, penned the following sentence. "Hell!" said the Duchess. Strangely enough, this tale of mine opens in much the same fashion, only the lady who gave utterance to the exclamation was not a duchess. It was a day in early June. I had been transacting some business in Paris and was returning by the morning service to London, where I was still sharing rooms with my old friend, the Belgian ex-detective Hercule Poirot. That's how I'm going to say it. I'm sticking to it. Oh dear. I'm sorry if that's wrong. The Calais Express was singularly empty. In fact, my own compartment held only one other traveler. Remember the title of the chapter. I had made a somewhat hurried departure from the hotel and was busy assuring myself that I had duly collected all my traps when the train started up. I don't know what traps means in this context. Anyways, unless it's actual traps, in which case that's amazing. Up until then, I had hardly noticed my companion. Rude. But I was now violently recalled to the fact of her existence. Jumping up from her seat, she let down the window and stuck her head out, withdrawing it a moment later with the brief and forcible ejaculation, "Hell!" Now, I am old-fashioned, not an old-fashioned. A woman, I consider, should be womanly. Well, this is getting rough already. I have no patience with the modern erotic girl who jazzes from morning to night, smokes like a chimney, and uses language which would make a Billingsgate fishwoman blush. Wow, I feel like that's some trash talk on whatever Billingsgate is. Anyways, I looked up now, frowning slightly, into a pretty, impudent face surmounted by a rakish little red hat. A thick cluster of black curls hid each ear. I judged that she was little more than 17, but her face was covered with powder and her lips were quite impossibly scarlet. Nothing abashed, she returned my glance and executed an expressive grimace. "Dear me, we've shocked the kind gentleman," she observed to an imaginary audience. "I apologize for my language most unladylike and all that, but oh Lord, there's reason enough for it. Do you know I've lost my only sister?" "Oh, that's sad." "Really?" I said politely. "How unfortunate." "Just politely?" "He disapproves," remarked the lady. "He disapproves utterly of me and my sister, which last is unfair because he hasn't seen her." I opened my mouth, but she forestalled me. "Say no more! Nobody loves me! I shall go into the garden and eat worms. Boo-hoo! I am crushed." This is so weird, guys. I maybe should have read a little bit of this before picking it, but I'm going to stick with it. She buried herself behind a large comic French paper. In a minute or two, I saw her eyes stealthily peeping at me over the top. In spite of myself, I could not help smiling, and in a minute she had tossed the paper aside and had burst into a merry peal of laughter. "I knew you weren't such a mutt as you looked," she cried. What? Okay. Her laughter was so infectious that I could not help joining in, though I hardly cared for the word mutt. The girl was certainly all that I most disliked, and that was no reason why I should make myself ridiculous by my attitude. I prepared to unbend. After all, she was decidedly pretty. Ooh, we into her? Oh, wait, no. She's the teenager. My bad. "There, now we're friends," declared the minx. "Say you're sorry about my sister." "I am desolated. That's a good boy." "Let me finish. I was going to add that, although I am desolated, I can manage to put up with her absence very well." I made a little bow. This is so weird. But the most unaccountable of damsels frowned and shook her head. "Cut it out. I prefer the dignified disapproval stunt. Oh, your face, not one of us," it said. "And you were right there, though, mind you, it's pretty hard to tell nowadays. It's not everyone who can distinguish between a demi and a duchess. There now, I believe I've shocked you again. You've been dug out of the backwoods, you have. Now, not that I mind that. We could do with a few more of your sort. I just hate a fellow who gets fresh. It makes me mad." She shook her head vigorously. "What are you like when you're mad?" I inquired with a smile. "A regular little devil. Don't care what I say or what I do either. I nearly did a chap in once." That's a lot. "Yes, really, he deserved it too. Italian blood I've got. Oh, God. Sorry, y'all. I shall get into trouble one of these days." "Well," I begged, "don't get mad with me." "I shan't. I like you. Did the first moment I set eyes on you, but you look so disapproving that I never thought we should make friends." "Well, we have. Tell me something about yourself." "I'm an actress." "No, not that kind you're thinking of, lunching at the Savoy, covered with jewelry and with the photograph in every paper, saying how much they love Madame So-and-so's face cream. I've been on the board since I was a kid of 6, tumbling." "I beg your pardon?" I said. "Haven't you seen Child Acrobats?" "Oh, I understand. I'm American-born, but I've spent most of my life in England. We've got a new show now." "We?" "My sister and I. Sort of a song and dance, and a bit of patter and a dash of old business thrown in. It's quite an idea, and it hits them every time. There's to be money in it." My new acquaintance leaned forward and discoursed volubly, a great many of her terms being quite unintelligible to me. Yet I found myself evincing an increasing interest in her. She seemed such a curious creature, a curious mixture of child and woman. Though perfectly worldly wise and able, as she expressed it, to take care of herself, there was yet something curiously ingenuous in her single-minded attitude toward life, and her whole-hearted determination to make good. This glimpse of a world unknown to me was not without its charm, and I enjoyed seeing her vivid little face light up as she talked. We passed through Amiens. Again, that pronunciation's probably wrong, I'm sorry. The name awakened many memories. My companion seemed to have an intuitive knowledge of what was in my mind. "Thinking of the war?" I nodded. "You were through it, I suppose?" "Pretty well. I was wounded once, and after the Somme they invalided me out altogether." Sorry, I'd never seen that as a verb. "I had a half-fledged army job for a bit. I'm sort of a private secretary now to an MP. "My, that's brainy." "No, it isn't. There's really awfully little to do. Usually a couple of hours every day sees me through. It's dull work, too. In fact, I don't know what I should do if I hadn't gotten something to fall back upon." "Don't say you collect bugs." "No, I share rooms with a very interesting man." That sounds like a euphemism. Anyways, he's a Belgian, an ex-detective. I feel like the ex-detective should have come first at that, whatever. He's set up as a private detective in London, and he's doing extraordinarily well. He's really a marvelous little man. Time and again, he has proved to be right where the official police have failed. My companion listened with widening eyes. Isn't that interesting now? I just adore crime. I go to all the mysteries on the movies, and when there's a murder on, I just devour the papers. A murder on? That's a weird phrasing. Do you remember the Styles case? I asked. Let me see, was that the old lady who was poisoned somewhere down in Essex? I nodded. That was Poirot's first big case. Undoubtedly, but for him, the murderer would have escaped scot-free. It was a most wonderful bit of detective work. Warming to my subject, I ran over the heads of the affair, working up to the triumphant and unexpected denouement. I hope I said that right. The girl listened spellbound. In fact, we were so absorbed that the train drew into Calais before we realized it. My goodness gracious me, cried my companion. Where's my powder puff? She proceeded to bedaub, I don't know, guys, her face liberally and then applied a stick of lip salve to her lips, observing the effect in a small pocket glass and betraying not the faintest sign of self-consciousness. I say, I hesitated. I dare say it's cheek on my part, but why do all that sort of thing? The girl paused her operations and stared at me with undisguised surprise. It isn't as though you weren't so pretty that you can afford to do without it, I said stammeringly. My dear boy, I've got to. All the girls do. Think I want to look like a little frump from the country? She took one last look in the mirror, smiled approval, and put it and her vanity box away in her bag. That's better. Keeping up appearances is a bit of a... I'm not going to use that word. It's now a derogatory word for gay people. I also know it's been used to mean cigarette. I don't know what it means in this context, but keeping up appearances is a bit of a laugh, maybe? I grant. But if a girl respects herself, it's up to her to not let herself get slack. To this essentially moral sentiment, I had no reply. A point of view makes a great difference. I secured a couple of porters and we alighted to the platform. My companion held out her hand. Goodbye, and I'll mind my language better in the future. Oh, but surely you'll let me look after you on the boat. Boat? Were we talking about a boat? Mayn't be on the boat. I've got to see whether that sister of mine got aboard after all anywhere. But thanks all the same. Oh, but we're going to meet again, surely. I hesitated. I want to meet your sister. We both laughed. That's real nice of you. I'll tell her what you say. But I don't fancy we'll meet again. You've been very good to me on the journey, especially after I cheeked you as I did. Again, haven't heard that before. Okay. But what your face expressed first thing is quite true. I'm not your kind. And that trouble brings... I know well enough. Her face changed. For the moment, all the light-hearted gaiety died out of it. It looked angry, revengeful. So goodbye, she finished in a lighter tone. That's just creepy, y'all. Aren't you even going to tell me your name? I cried as she walked away. She looked over her shoulder. A dimple appeared in each cheek. She was like a lovely picture by Greuze. That's, I guess, again, a pronunciation. Cinderella, she said and laughed. But little did I think when and how I should see Cinderella again. And that is the end of the first chapter.